Dr. Jazz.
Actually, like the first I want to
Jazz.
talk to you about, like I want to ask you, like I saw, you know, we had this lockdown now for some time, but you still did this online gig with Nils Wogram, a duo gig for Jazz Fest Sarajevo, and you guys are like, you have a blind connection going on somehow. I don't know. Even better when I see you play in duo, it's amazing because, you know, the Nostalgia Trio I really love, but the duo is so much more intimate. And I wanted to ask you, how did you hook up with Nils, or when did you start playing with him?
Me and Niels, we go way back. There was this big band we used to have I grew up in Nuremberg at the time. Thank you. My lovely assistant just brought me tea. And we had this big band in Nuremberg where I grew up, and this must have been around '94. And Niels came down and did, you know, he played a gig with us. Basically, he played in the section, and that's how we met. And I got about. And at that time, I had a band with somebody he had lessons with.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because at that time, I think he was studying with this guy, Adrian Mies, a trombone player, who's also in Switzerland now. He teaches in Basel. And I had a band with Adrian, which was actually touring a lot at those days. We did long tours, I remember. It was a sextet, and Niels had the records, and he knew about the band, so he liked it. And then we met in '94 with this big band, and then later on we did a few gigs in '96.
Oh, so early already. Wow.
No piano. And 2 years later we also did another gig in that same lineup, which was drums, bass, trombone, and saxophone. And I guess we started regularly playing with Nostalgia Trio in 2001.
Oh, wow. So that's basically 20 years ago already.
Almost. Maybe it could have been 2002.
Wow.
But it's somewhere along those years. And when the promoter of the Jazz Festival in Sarajevo called me in September, because we were actually, the idea was we were supposed to play at the festival with the trio.
Nostalgia. Yeah.
They decided to not have a regular festival because they couldn't, because of the lockdown situation, and they decided to go to stream things. And the idea was for him, because the promoter, he handpicked those rooms, for us recording in this museum in Berlin.
Yeah.
He wanted to express the necessity of this music first, to be that the work continues and the musicians still keep playing, but also by choosing those rooms, he wanted to demonstrate how important that music really is for him. So we would literally stand in front of the Babylon Gate, which is thousands of years old, and play a new version of ourselves. And he insisted that we play duo, because we never played duo together.
Before you never did it? Oh, wow.
And he wanted to have a premiere, and that's how this idea came about. And we rehearsed for a day.
Oh, wow.
And did the recording basically all in one take, and that was that.
Did you ever play before, like with a horn player, like concerts, duos?
Well, I played some duos, yes. Not with Nils though, but I've played some duos. Yeah.
It's quite intimate, right? I mean, I think of like Coltrane playing with, Rashid Ali and stuff like that, and it's just like it's heavy.
I always love duo settings. You know, it's different when you have to do a whole concert of it. You know, then
Yeah.
You sort of need to think things through a little bit. But duo settings just anywhere in the music is I just always loved them, and of course tenor and saxophone,
Yeah.
and drums, yeah, legendary.
Yeah. But yeah, if I go just like a couple of months back, I think we actually played for me at least, it was the last gig before the lockdown in March in Ljubljana. We shared the bill, and
Yes.
you played this. I think it was your last concert of the tour, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's such an amazing band, man, with Bojan and Matt Penman and Chris Speed. And I wanted to ask you, I think we talked about it then already, that you guys recorded some new music also. And first I wanted to ask you, how did that tour actually go? Because it was already happening like during the...
Yeah, we were supposed to have like 10 gigs, and we ended up having 8 because just while we were on tour, we were supposed to have 2 concerts in Italy, in Trieste and in Venezia, and that got cancelled. That got cancelled just while we were on tour, basically, just a couple of days before. I think they called me on the Monday, and the gigs were like Friday and Saturday. And they said they had to close the place. They're not allowed to open the rooms, and they can't have public, etc. And then I called the record company and said, "Look, guys, are we doing this recording, or is everything just falling apart?" They said, "No. We definitely do the recording." And I told them we have like 2 more extra days because those gigs were cancelled. And they said, "Well, come to Udine, come to the studio. You can have an extra day if you want."
Oh, wow.
We did. So we basically had 3 days to, which was, you know, an aftermath. I think it was great to have.
You recorded at Stefanos Amerios place, or?
Yes.
Yeah, I love the place. Yeah.
Yeah. It was the first time I was there actually, and it was beautiful. And we had basically 3 days to record the music.
Wow.
We also did a little bit of a video shoot, so
yeah.
And then it was also funny. You know, we were supposed to get picked up in Udine by the promoter from Jankarev Dom from Ljubljana.
Yeah.
And the day of our concert in Ljubljana, he's like, "Hey, we cannot drive to Italy. We're not allowed to pick you up in Italy. So can you come to the border?" Yes. So it was like a bit in the old days when you had to jump, you know, change vans at the border. But the whole thing turned out really good. I'm super happy with the recording.
When is it coming out?
I don't know.
But it's on Com Jazz, I mean?
It's on Com Jazz, and it was supposed to come out in January now, but it's moved. Like,
yeah,
they
things
had to
are
reschedule their whole release plan
Sure.
for 21. And since Italy is also in total lockdown, I don't know if these guys are even working.
Yeah.
Right now.
Depends.
I don't know if I tried to call the other day, but no.
But
so I guess it will come out at some point in the spring.
Yeah, definitely. But it's like, did you approach, because it's basically it's your Prometheus group, right?
Yes, yeah.
And did you approach this new album differently than the last one? Like, especially compositionally, in a sense?
Yeah, we play a lot more free stuff now.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a little different, yeah. Composition. No, I always, with that band, it's like that's stuff that I need to explore for myself, and unfortunately, these poor guys have to read it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, I listened to you know, your music. I remember you gave me, like, when we played in 2007, the first Underground CD with Speed, Frank, and Elias, and I loved it already then. You know, it's so fresh. And but I wanted to ask you, how do you write these compositions? Because you know, like already on Prometheus, the last album, like the first song or every song is just like ka 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 ka. And I kind of get it. Like, you know, I wrote down some structures like, oh, he's in 7, that's 9. Okay. And then you lose me, of course, when the, I don't know, Chris comes over. So
yeah, so it's different on every song, on every composition. It's really different. Okay, but when you name it Prometheus, it's a poem, right? It's well, it's a Titan from the Greek mythology, but it's also, for me, it's a poem by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, something I had to learn in school, which I still remember today. And I took the rhythms of the poem.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Bedecke deinen Himmelszeus mit Wolkenblues und üble Knaben gleich.
Oh, wow, that's so cool, man. Good idea.
So I took that and sort of translated that on the piano, which ended up like being having this sort of ostinato on the piano that I worked out. But basically, that's why it's called Prometheus. Basically, it's the poem, the German poem of it. When you read it, you could sort of.
Oh, I have to check the re-listen. That's cool. But you write on piano otherwise, always, or?
On this one, I started on piano. Yeah, I started on piano, and then I took it on the computer, and there's no random stuff on this one. No, that was basically the original idea was on the piano. Then, you know, I looped the stuff and played drums to it and see where it leads me, and then harmonic wise.
Yeah.
Then I add different intervals and stuff, and a bit of a harmonic background to it.
Yeah.
The rest is basically editing on the computer, but the primary idea was at the piano trying to figure out the rhythms of the poem.
Wow, that's so cool. That's so cool, man. But how do you usually write? Like, are you one of those guys that, like, you know, I'm like that. So if I know that I have a project, then I'll sit down and start doing it. Or are you like more like a type of a composer who, you know, like every day writes down an idea and then collects them and then takes them out and develops them? What's your creative process? I mean, usually.
It's kind of funny. I like to think about it that I'm that kind of writer that who leads like deadlines.
Yeah. Okay.
On the horizon. If I know I have to write for a new album and I have this deadline, then it seems to be easier for me. But as I was just going through all my files the other day as I cleaned up my computer, I realized that I'm writing a lot of stuff throughout the year that I never really use. It's just sitting there and waiting to be explored, and yeah, and it's also it's a bit of a phase. Right now, I don't have the nerve to write anything. Just this whole lockdown situation.
Yeah, that's
bugging me, and I mean, I just finished an album, just waiting to be released, and not necessarily have the necessity now to start writing. But all the time, my mind is still working, and I'm realizing I need to do another CD anyway, and I keep collecting ideas already for the next recording. So this is how it actually starts. I start collecting ideas. This is how it starts, you know, and then try to. First of all, I think of them, and I realize, oh, that's something I haven't really done yet, and then I go about that thing, and it's a slow process. Sometimes it's a super fast process, but most of the times I like to take my time and keep working on things. Or I mean, it's like also it's this other thing, you know. It's you know, playing drums over those rhythms. It's that's the other way around. If I have those kind of a rhythm structure, which I'm like, oh man, I've never played this before, so I might start practicing that rhythm structure and then add the rest of the song to it. So,
but like, do you know, like, let's say you will start thinking about the new project. Will you already have in mind which players are there, or like?
Well, I was talking about my quartet.
Yeah. yeah.
Of course, with Chris and Boyan and Matt.
Yeah.
So when I was thinking about doing another record, I was thinking about doing another record with them.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I will for sure do another record.
Yeah,
Just
sure.
and then the other thing is, let's see if all these record companies, if they're going to survive this.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, the repercussions of this lockdowns, and it's basically a year without work.
Yeah, yeah.
We can't even, we can't even tell. We don't even know when we're going to get back to normal. Will there
Yeah.
be anything normal? So,
If what the normal will be, right? Yeah.
if people are going to come to our gigs, I played some concerts in September. I was happy to have had some gigs in September.
Oh, actually, with audience and.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's cool.
But guess what? The places where we played, well, depends on where. We played a few gigs in Switzerland. They were packed. Of course, limited seating.
Mm-hmm.
These guys showed up. But then I played 2 or 3 nights at the A Train in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
And he's only been allowed to have 35 people.
Oh
and
shit.
20 show up.
Wow.
Which means for him, it's like audience is afraid,
Yeah, yeah. It's gonna change a little, yeah, the whole industry and the thinking, and yeah, we'll see. The tough times now and ahead. Actually, I mean, it's well, we'll
And
see.
maybe, also, doing a CD and all that kind of stuff. It's like that's also something we should probably think it over, since it costs so much money to
Yeah.
produce one, and then nobody listens to it, nobody's buying it. So what's the point of it? We might probably need to, I don't know, maybe videos.
I completely, yeah, I agree with you, because it's changed. In the past, I remember when you made an album, it was like a big thing in a way. You're like, it was. Now it's just like, I don't know. Also for me, it's kind of lost this enthusiasm for making, like, oh, it's a new album. It's gonna,
Yeah. It's things we can't decide in one day, but
yeah.
Even before the lockdown, the radio stations over here, they were facing some really critical cutbacks.
Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah.
And I was talking to a journalist. This is pre-corona, and for example, at a big radio station in Germany, they were told not to broadcast full albums anymore, just a few titles.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So, we spent so much time on finding the right dramaturgy for an album with all those songs. At the end, the radio stations, they're not going to play it in full.
Yeah.
So the question is why, there are many questions open. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this, yeah, no, but this lockdown, I mean, definitely raises some questions. I mean, I've spoken with many musicians about that, what the role of a label is, what's the future of releasing albums, so I think many platforms like Bandcamp and stuff like that maybe will come ahead more, and YouTube, and I think we also have to change our perception of, I think we're still part of that generation which really bought CDs and even LPs, so we have to, I think, really change our mindset how to do that. So that's maybe in a way also good, but yeah, we will see. So what actually happens. So, but just to go to a little bit more other side, I wanted to ask you about your quartet then. And I mean, I know you played with Chris for such a long time, but I wanted to ask you about first Bojan and Matt. How did you meet those two guys and get this band together?
I met Bojan in 1982.
Wow, already?
Yeah, we have like family ties.
Really?
Yeah. He had a band with my cousin, who at that time played the guitar. And Bojan is from Belgrade, and one part of my family lives in Belgrade. I have an uncle who happens to be a big jazz nerd, and he was also teaching music at a primary music school in Belgrade, where a lot of guys went to. For example, Bojan.
Oh.
So I one day I was visiting with my family, and that was over the summer, and we believe it's been in '82. Boyan was still playing drums back then, and my cousin was playing the guitar, like I mentioned, and they had a trio, and they played Beatles songs, rock songs, whatever. That's how I met.
Oh, wow.
And since those families, so Boyan's family were very close with my uncle's family, and we would always
Oh.
hear from each other. And then he moved to Paris, and well, not then, but
Yeah,
after
like
he
late 80s, yeah.
19, I guess he moved to Paris, and I haven't seen him in all these years. And then we met on some festival in 2006, and that was a big hang when we met. And at that time I said, yeah, Boyan, we should also play together at some point. But it never really worked out. He did call me once for something where there was something about dates that didn't work out. But then when I had this idea of forming a quartet with Chris, because I had this other band, Melanoia, which was in my mind was sort of finished. It got to a point where I said, okay, I could do something else now. And I have been working with Matt also very early on, not as early with, but I met Matt in the early 2000s.
Already, wow.
The common denominator is Nils Wogram. Each of us.
Oh yeah, he played with Nils, yeah.
So I was subbing also for Jochen a few times in this other band, Route 70 band. This is where I played with Matt the first time.
Exactly.
And we did some stuff at the radio in Hamburg. This is, I guess, 2003, 2002.
Wow.
2003. And on one of these tours, I asked him, hey man, I'm sort of thinking about doing a record. And I was wondering if you would be interested with Speed and Boyan. He's like, fuck yeah, sure. It's kind of funny when we finally got together in 2015, and it was super family atmosphere. Everybody knew each other, and it was really fun. So that's how that's. And actually, as a matter of fact, Boyan also plays with Nils. They have a duo.
Oh yeah, they have a duo. Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of everything is about this constant amount of people that I'm working with.
Yeah, that's good. That's jazz, right? The small community in a way also. But what about Chris? Like he was already on Underground, which is 2006, right?
Yeah, well, Chris, I met in '89. He was
wow.
living. It's a funny story. Do you know Frank Möbus, the guitar player?
Oh, I love Frank, man, for sure. Rote Bereich and all that. I'm huge fan.
Him and Jim Black, you know Jim, of course.
Yeah.
Him, Frank, and Jim and Chris, they all studied together in Boston.
Yeah.
And they finished their studies, and Frank, as Frank is, his parents are like, I think his father is an architect, and they didn't really know exactly what to do. And his father came up with an idea, said, look, guys, we have this house outside of Nuremberg. You can have it for free for at least a year. So they moved to Nuremberg.
Wow.
The idea was, I guess, for them to rehearse and practice and become famous. But really, that's how I met these guys. I remember when I was living in Nuremberg, and then somebody told me, "Hey man, tonight there's this duo gig. You should see those guys from New York, from Boston. Who are they? It's a guy called Chris Speed and an incredible drummer called Jim Black. They play duo? What?" Yeah, that's how I met these guys. And they were there for about a year, and we hung out and become friends. And Jim was also my teacher at that time. So
really?
Yeah, I had a lot of lessons. Not a lot, but the regular lessons with him.
How was that like with Jim?
It was great. He, how was it? For me, back then, Jim had this already. He had this sound on the drums.
Yeah.
That didn't really appeal to me that much because he was, a huge drum kit and low fat bass drum, but for me, and then I just started. I really liked. I was just getting into, Jimmy Cobb, and those. I thought I need to learn the whole thing from the start, from the get go, and I heard I had a different ideal when it comes to sound. And then I heard Jim and yeah, it's a little too rocky for me, maybe. But then again, he has all this jazz history in him.
Yeah.
And he really knows. He knows a lot of stuff, and he immediately he got me into Jack DeJohnette, and he was a great teacher. I remember when he taught me actually how to play up tempo.
Wow.
Yeah. That was Jim back in, man, this must have been in the 90s, early 90s.
Wow. But it's funny because like Chris had also Speed, he had like kind of it makes sense that he's playing with you because, he had those bands like Pachora and he played the odd rhythms and he was interested in these Balkan rhythms for a long time. So it's kind of like a natural flow that you guys met, right? Also, and started playing.
Yeah, but he got all this. This was all after we met.
Yeah.
So, at that time, I remember, I remember that at some point that trio with Jim and Frank that was falling apart, and after a year or something, I think the guys needed to go back.
Yeah.
So what they did, and they moved to New York, and I don't know. A couple of weeks later, I hear, hey, these guys are touring now with Tim Byrne.
Yeah.
Which I always thought, oh great, these guys are, I watched them over the years because they would every time they would play in Germany, and they played there a lot.
Yeah.
And Chris was really digging into his clarinet playing, and somewhere a couple of years later, he spent a couple of months in Bulgaria to study that music.
Oh really? I didn't know that. Wow.
And to study the clarinet and to study the music. He was there for a few months, and even went to Italy and stayed there for a few months. So he really invested time and effort and really research. He was checking out. That's how he learned all those songs from that eastern part of Europe. I don't even know them.
Yeah.
But he's like, he knows so many songs from that part of the world, and. I was totally into jazz at that time while they were doing Pachora.
Yeah.
I was totally into the whole jazz bit, and I had to discover all of that really a lot later.
Yeah.
But it's typical me. It's like, they do the record and do the tour. I come to the gig and they give me the CD, and it's like 7 years later, I'm like, hey man, I love that CD you did with Pachora. It's 8 years ago. Yeah, but I just... took me out, because I was really discovering all that jazz stuff quite a lot, and I did 2 records in that idiom.
Yeah, like 4-for-1 is even with Garzone, right? How did you meet with George Garzone? He's like, for me, one of the giants of tenor sax.
Well, I was, I was at this camp in Vermont many times. I was there 3 times, Vermont Jazz Center. I went there for, funny story, I met, you probably also know him, Attila Zoller.
Yeah, I loved him. Yeah, he's such an underrated player.
Yeah, he heard me, that was in 1990 in Nuremberg. He heard me play at the session, and do you speak German?
Yeah, sure.
He's like, and he had this really funny Viennese sort of broken accent, English, Hungarian, Viennese.
Oh my.
And I didn't know him, so I came off the stage, and she's like, yeah, Bupi. Yes, du musst jetzt mal zu mir nach New York kommen und ich habe Jimmy Cobb und so einen Workshop und
Seriously? So fun.
And we had it, he gave me his contacts and called me. You should really come over to New York. I have Jimmy Cobb at this workshop. It's a summer camp. It's the 3 weeks.
Wow.
Have a look. Might even stay at my place at one point. And then I realized who he is, and I looked at the stuff, and it turns out a couple of guys went to. A couple of guys I know from my neighborhood back then. They all went to this workshop, and I said, okay, since I'm doing all this, I might as well stay in New York for a couple of months.
Wow! And you did then, or? Oh wow! Wow.
So I went. That was the summer of '91, and I went there to New York, stayed there, and I was blown away. It was a bit of a difficult situation for me back then because my father has just passed away, and I didn't really know. I had this, this huge talent and I wanted to play drums and all of that. But all of a sudden, I'm like, should I? There was some part of me was saying, are you looking for something? Shouldn't you be looking for something which is a bit more on the safe side?
Mm.
And that was also one of the reasons why I went to New York because. Nuremberg, the scene, God, I didn't really know. Except, there was Jim and Chris and Frank, but apart from those guys, it was really Diaspora. Not good players and kind of not much gigs and a bit of a strange situation. So out of that, I also said, okay, if I really want to get into jazz and, because I started playing rock drums in the beginning. I started playing it when I was 11, and
Oh, really?
Oh. Yeah. So the whole thing. I was playing rock music, and then it turned to my brothers playing the piano back then, and we had bands, and then it became a little more complex rock music, and then even more complex rock music.
But what was the trigger for you? You remember some of the first records that you heard that you said I want to start playing jazz actually or explore it?
I remember that day very well. It's in '86 or '87, and it's a record. It's actually one song. It's actually one solo that got me hooked on jazz. It's Kenny Kirkland on Sting's "Bring on the Night."
Oh yeah, okay.
Do you know this? Do you remember?
It's a double album, double CD.
Yeah. I didn't, I loved the Police, and when Sting said, "Oh, I'm gonna go solo," and he's like,
yeah.
And I didn't know anybody. And somebody played me the tape back then, and he's like, "Hey man, you should check this piano player." And I listened to it like, "What the fuck is he?"
Yeah. And
that's how I got into jazz. I know, my uncle from Belgrade, he would send me tapes of Ella Fitzgerald and God knows what, jazz from the 50s. And I'm like, some of these tapes, the drums sound so horrible. The drums like. And it didn't appeal to me back then because I couldn't understand what it actually would sound like. I sort of needed a bit of a clearer sound, also about drums. But then with Kenny Kirkland, it wasn't Omar Hakim was playing drums, and it didn't interest me that much what he was doing. But what Kenny played was incredible.
He was amazing.
I started following him, and then I ended up with a guy called Jeff Watts. And that's how I got into jazz.
Oh, yeah, that's a good start. I mean, Sting is also for me that Englishman in New York. That solo break when Branford Marsalis has that. Yeah. I was like, what is this? And then you just start exploring who these guys are. So.
Englishman in New York is Manu Katché on drums, I think.
Yeah, no, like Branford is playing saxophone.
Yeah.
But Manu is also, wow, what a joint. But you mentioned New York, man. So and this is also when you studied with then Marvin Smith and Bill Stewart, or wow, how was that like? Marvin Smith, like in the early '90s, late '80s, he was for me one of the best drummers ever. Like with Dave Holland and Steve Coleman, and
he was the king, man. And then yeah, he was on all these record dates, and he did 2 records of his own, which I
Yeah.
still listen today. And then he got this gig at at this TV gig in Los Angeles.
Jay Leno, yeah, Tonight Show, yeah.
And since then, I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, he stopped making, in a way. He did some records with Kevin Eubanks, but not a lot. So, yeah.
I'm sure he made a lot of money doing that gig. But I think that gig is also over now, so I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody told me that he had a bit of a difficult. I don't know.
Yeah. But how was that like with him? I mean, because he was so amazing, is basically still. I mean,
so that was. Let me finish that. So I went to this
Vermont, yeah.
Vermont Jazz Center. This lasted for 3 weeks, and that was great. And 3 weeks having Jimmy Cobb day by day around you was just amazing. And then after that, I started a course at the Drummers Collective. And I had 3 guys who were as my principal teachers, which was Marvin, and it was Mike Clark.
Oh, wow.
You know him from
the
Headhunters?
Sure.
And this Brazilian guy, Duduca da Fonseca.
Oh, yeah.
And with Marvin, it was he's kind of a very dominant teacher back then. Because I did ask him questions about, hey man, how do you play this and how do you play that? And clearly I was not on that level at that time to really study all these cross rhythms. And no, you got to learn how to play straight ahead. And I told him, man, I think I did a little bit of that. I was just in Vermont doing this with Jimmy. Oh, really? Great. So I had to tell him how it was with Jimmy, and so he wanted to know.
That's cool.
Yeah, but that stuff that I remember was really great. And then he left pretty soon. I had maybe only, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 lessons or something. And then Mike Clark took over the rest of his lessons. With him, I was doing some odd meter stuff back then. He showed me some 5s and some 7s. And what was to me was really great at that time. I was living at Attila Zoller's place back then in New York.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's kind of funny with Attila. At some point, I became the son he never had.
Yeah, interesting.
Somehow, not really. I wasn't really into that. And later on, we also started playing together, and we did have some nice concerts. This is years later.
Yeah.
But
interesting.
That was. For me, he took me, with him in New York, he knew everybody. We hung out, and I met Joe Lovano back then. All these cats.
Yeah.
He took me to the Village Gate to listen to Bill Stewart.
Ah, wow. He was really young then, yeah, like in the beginnings, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then the next day I had lessons with Bill, and that was super fun. And I also met Lee Konitz and the trio with Don Friedman, Attila, and Lee. They really played a lot those days, and we would constantly hang. God, Attila was such a hang.
Really? Oh wow!
Constantly hang at the what was it called? The Bradleys.
Oh yeah. I know Bradley's. Yeah, they're like all these duo concerts always there. So.
And there's Attila was such a funny guy. And I remember, he had drums. I can't remember how long I stayed at his place. I might have been there for a month or something. And sometimes he had drums in his place, and sometimes he would call a bass player. So we would jam.
Nice.
And there's one incredible story. It was I forgot the name of the bass player, but a bass player came along, a young guy, also a student like me. And he's like, we were playing tunes, and the bass player brought a chart of a song he wanted to play. Also forgot the song. And Attila looked at the chart and said, ha! It was the Aebersold chart, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
And he's like, oh man, that's just so wrong. These are the wrong changes. picks up the phone. Jamie, how you doing? Hi, this is Attila. How you doing, man? Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Listen, I'm here in a jam, and just somebody brought in a chart of you, and you're printing the wrong changes, man. And he was giving him shit for 45 minutes.
Oh my God.
You know, and we're like,
yeah.
and that's how Attila was. He would give you shit for.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to learn in a way, right? So.
And later on, man, God, and later on, I moved back after that. What was it? How much? I was there for 7-8 months or something, and then back to Nuremberg. And this is 91. So 4 years later, I was already doing some playing, and I had this interview I was like one of the young jazz lines coming in. I had this interview, which actually, considering now, it was like 2-page. And the guy asked me what my plans were, and that time I really had gigs lined up with Lee Konitz.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was with a piano player from Munich, Walter Lang, and I was hired to play. There was in South Germany, there was this sort of musical center, and they did a saxophone workshop for international students, saxophone students, and they had Lee Konitz, James Moody, some German guys, and I was in the rhythm section. I was hired to be part of the rhythm section, and the pianist. Apart from that, we did some gigs with Lee Konitz, and in the interview, I said just that. I said, yeah, we have this thing lined up, and I'm really looking forward to play with Lee, and blah 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 blah. And then the thing gets printed and gets distributed. I get a call, an angry call, like 6 o'clock my time in the morning. Yes, it's Attila giving me shit for 2 hours. Who do you think you are? What does make you so special? How can you play with Lee Konitz? You're not supposed to play with Lee Konitz. You should play with, you should play with those guys from the Danube River. That's the guys you should play with. But you're not supposed to. 2 hours, he was giving me shit.
Oh.
He was right. He was right. He was really right about this.
But did you then actually do those concerts with Lee? How was that?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, but that was fun. I mean, how was that like an experience? Like
it was super fun, and it was super fun. We played even a duet.
Wow, beautiful.
It was super inspiring, and I learned so much.
Yeah.
He would do lectures. He would play a little bit, and he would do talk and just. And it was always when he did those lectures. That was like there were around 100 saxophone students. 100. So it's like a big hall, and we're playing a song, and he's talking a little bit, and we're playing another song, and he's talking. And at some point, he's like, "Are there any questions?" And there was this young dude, the French guy. He's like, "Mr. Konitz, can you play like Michael Brecker?"
Michael Brecker.
And
what did he do? Like he was really angry, right?
No, he turned around, looked at us, and said, "Why does a dog lick itself?"
What a dude.
And then we played the next song. So this is insane.
Yeah.
It's an insane question, but it was so much fun. He would talk, things like he was subbing for Charlie Parker.
That's.
Jesus.
Did you ever ask him, like when you played concerts, like questions about I always regret sometimes when playing with musicians, when you go on a tour and then you don't ask these questions, you just hang, but I sometimes regret not asking some people, how was it like when you played with Jim Hall, because I really love these stories. Did you ask something like that, Lee, like when you played? Or
I asked him about one particular date. I asked him about this. There's this incredible, which is actually one of my favorite records of Lee. It's Live at the Half Note.
okay. Don't know that one.
Well, it's this thing. It's Lenny Tristano's band.
Ah.
Paul Motion, young Paul Motion, and young
Wow.
Jimmy Garrison swinging like hell.
Really? Oh wow, I have to check it out.
And it's Warren Marsh, and it's Bill Evans is on the day. So
Wow.
Lee's not even there.
Wow.
And but they're playing all God.
Standards and
No, they're playing all Lenny's songs.
oh, Lenny Tristano. Yeah, he was such a composer, man. Yeah.
They play all his songs, and it's, I think on the record it says I think there's one issue that says Lenny Tristano band lineup Bill Evans.
Okay, I'll check it out.
But then the one that I have, I think it's Lee Conan's live at the Half Note.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll check it out.
I did ask him about the date and what happened, and then he said, "Yeah, Lenny couldn't make it."
Oh.
That's the answer that you get. And he said something like, "I had enough of this." And it's just, you know, when he was talking, I could learn so much. So there's, I guess we all know this record, Sonny Rollins live at the Village Vanguard with Elvin Jones.
Elvin, yeah.
Legendary record, right? And Lee's like, yeah, I was there. I walked out. I couldn't stand the music.
Wow.
So,
yeah, I've heard he was like that, Lee. I mean, I've heard stories.
That's Lee. You know, I'd pay a lot of money to see that gig live. You know,
yeah.
But he's like, no, I walked out of it.
That's so cool. But Dan, you mentioned like odd meters. I have to ask you this question because how do you approach odd meters, and how did you start studying these things? I mean, you know, you come from an area which is famous for, you know, the Balkans for sevens, nines, and all that. But you went even further and then started making this, at least when I hear them, long structures and more complicated odd rhythms. How do you practice this stuff, like that you are comfortable in it?
That's a good question. I guess the first odd meter I ever played was in 5, and that took me a while. Basically, what I do is I write out bass vamps or bass figures or something, and you know, in the beginning it's like a 1-bar phrase, and I try to play it naturally, which means that I don't have to count anymore. And then I make it 2-bar phrase, and then I make it 4-bar phrase or 8-bar phrases. That's how I usually go about it. So, and then always having the metronome giving you the 1, but then when you do those sort of vamps, you can, you know, have the metronome for 8 bars, and then you have no metronome for 8 bars. And the tricky part is always, it's kind of easy to play a vamp.
Yeah.
Like if the bass goes doom, 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 you know. But, and then it gets, and if you're only used to that, then you have a hard time when you actually play and improvise over these things, because what bass player is going to play this all the time? You know?
Yeah.
So it's about a two-way approach. One way it's like really analytically from one point where you have stable bass lines and you extend them into 2, 4, 6, and 8-bar phrases. The other thing is the random thing. That I guess it comes with routine. You know?
Yeah.
You cannot learn that from a book. You need to really spend time with it. I come from a region apparently but I never listened to that music when I was young. So also my parents never listened to that stuff. I really had to learn everything by myself, by records and you know, finding interesting rhythms from that era. I mean, but at the same time, these guys, they don't improvise with the rhythms that much.
No, yeah, it's kind of like yeah, it's like the same vamp going on,
And there's one sort of rock fusion recording from that time, Lala. Yeah, he passed away a couple of years. Yugoslav drummer, basically. Ratko Stefanovski is playing guitar. You know these guys?
Yeah, sure. Lebisol, I listened to that like
a
lot. That you know,
like a harmonica player from, I think he's from Belgrade, who did some really interesting takes on odd meter. So they're playing a song in 11.
Oh, okay.
And 13.
Oh, wow.
And that, when I heard that, I said, wow, it's really great. And same thing, I tried to write something in 11 and then try to get a feel over it. But I mean, I have to always, I'm never really, it's always a big challenge to play those rhythms. It's really not easy. Yeah, I guess so. It started with 5 and then with 7. I believe what's my influence in 7/4 was Brad Meldow's All the Things You Are.
Oh yeah.
And
stuff like that. Yeah.
Apparently he took the intro of Keith Jarrett's All the Things You Are from the tribute record.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that.
He plays an intro which is really it's super hip. You can't, the bar is shorter, but you don't know what it is. You cannot. It's impossible to transcribe. It's not one fixed rhythm, but sometimes the bars are a little shorter. And Brad said in an interview once that was his inspiration to play All the Things You Are in 7.
Oh, interesting.
And I guess that I listen to that a lot, and the same thing. You write something, 2 bars, 4 bars, 8 bars, and then you try to improvise with it. And over the course of time, or when you actually play those rhythms, that's how you really develop it.
Yeah. It's heavy. It's you're comfortable. Like for me, at least, in 7/5, that's kind of makes it's natural. But then I looked the other day some charts of Dafer Youssef, the oud player, and it's just like these heavy structures, like I don't know, 29/16, like going really fast and changing into 4/4, and then I'm like, I spoke to Chris Jennings, the bass player who played with Duffer, and how he approaches playing this stuff. And he said, just like, playing it over and over and over so that it comes natural, and then you can slowly start moving things within it. But yeah, challenging stuff, but that's the fun stuff, I guess, So.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, I did a lot of research on all these numbers, and 29, I haven't really played. I had 25, I had 37.
Oh my God.
If I really, the other day I thought about this new album that's going to come out. If I could actually make a list of just numbers.
Yeah.
That gives away the rhythms that would actually play. And
that would be cool.
I found this one really interesting thing, which is related to the Fibonacci.
Yeah.
Number and it's kind of, it morphs from 4/4 to 13 to 21. 21, yes, yeah. 4/4 8, yes, 8, 13, 21, and I spend a lot of time with that stuff, morphing those rhythms. Yeah. And but it's the same thing. Even I'd probably, when I would have to play a 29, I'd go about it the same way. I would go about it in the same way. I'd write something and start playing it over and over again. Feel. I think what's more important is, I mean, at some point the length of the bar is not so interesting anymore. It's more important the smaller cells that you have.
To subdivide it. Yeah.
Or the thing is, or the basic idea is, to you can divide everything by 3 and 2.
Yeah, sure.
But but then again, if you look at a little bigger picture, would be to divide everything by 4 and 5, with 5s and 4s.
Yeah.
And to not separate the 5s anymore in terms of 3 and 2. No, if you keep the 5s as 5s and have a bit of a longer stretch, that's a bit of a trick. There are a few bands where you can, I mean, Vijaya Trio, for example.
Yeah.
They're subdividing a lot with 5s, not so much 2s and 3s. You can really tell it's 5 beat phrases that they're playing.
And Marcus Gilmore then, yeah.
Yeah, that helps actually a lot. So if you're not into instead of it's the next.
Yeah.
So 2 bigger cells.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of, when I practice this, that helped me a lot, because I thought, how could you get away from these 3s and 2s and 3s and 2s and 2s and 3s? If you just look at the bigger number,
yeah,
there's and then playing in 5 and subdividing in 5 is very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you've done that a lot as a composer and band leader. I wanted to ask you also this, like, you like, what's the thing you like about being a band leader?
Oh, nothing.
So you prefer being a sideman then, or a collaborator, or?
It's the other way around. I always said, you don't become a band leader overnight. I think it needs a necessity to do what you have to do as a band leader. And believe me, there's a lot of stuff I hate about being a band leader. But, and here's the crucial thing, for me, it became a necessity to play my own music.
Yeah.
And it's this way around. It's not like I said, oh, I want to be a band leader and hey, go on tour and just play anything. You bring a song, no. It's the other way around. For me, it was really a necessity to start, to play my own music, because I did so much sideman work, and at some point, it's questionable. I remember sometimes I'm also frustrating. I had frustrating moments as a sideman. Locked in a car in Norway in the middle of fucking winter, and it's 10 meters of snow outside. You're stuck in a van that just broke down, and you're stuck in the snow. You're freezing half to death. So what's the point? And then you go to the studio, record something like, it wasn't really my choice. So I guess when I turned 30 or 31 or 2, I just started questioning, investing so much, because as a sideman, it's just, the term is stupid, sideman.
Yeah,
It sounds like, oh, you're not in it for the whole deal. But it's totally unlogical, because once you accept to do a gig, you're in there with all of your heart and all of your emotionally. I'm trying to be totally emotionally involved in that particular music.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of energy to bring every time, to deliver every time on gigs or on recordings, and at some point, hey, I'd rather do that on my own stuff.
Yeah, makes sense in a way.
It's not that I want to control things too much. No, it's not that. I just after doing all this, I guess I got really serious in 2000. I think in 2004.
So before Underground came out, right? Kind of.
No. Underground was the first band where I said, okay, I'm going to be really serious now.
Oh, okay. Wow, okay.
Before that, it wasn't very convincing from my side. And I wasn't. Didn't want to go. I didn't. Before that, I did albums, 3, but we did very little gigs. So I was, wasn't a good band leader at that time. So 3 records I did, but that was literally almost no touring before or after the recordings, and I got serious in 2004 with Underground. And then we did 2 tours a year, and records. I think that's a crucial moment in my career. I could say that in 2004 I finally made the decision to cut down on sideman work and concentrate more on my own projects.
What does it mean for you? You said being a good band leader. What does that mean?
You know, being a good band leader is like, you know, it's like when you've done so many tours, and I learned so much from really. I was fortunate to be around great band leaders. The first one I would name is Nils Wogram.
Yeah.
You know, taking care of everything. What happens on and off the road. You know, taking care of dates. Make sure that if you reserve 2 weeks, that you have 2 weeks of gigs. Making sure that there is enough money. Making sure you have food every day. Making sure you have good hotels. That the travel. You know, I mean,
Not too long.
really, you know, having all the information that you need. You know, departure time is when is the sound check. You know, being precise on all these little things. That's what really makes a great band leader. You know, because it helps so much on the road. It helps so much.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Writing out train connections, train numbers, seat reservations, and all that. You know that.
Yeah.
And I learned from some really great band leaders.
Like
I also worked with guys that were horrible. When is the flight? Oh, I don't know. It's tomorrow. So when? Oh, I have to look. So,
oh my God. Yeah, that would be terrible.
You know, sometimes I had wake-up calls. Hey, we have to leave in 2 hours. Oh, okay. You know, that's a nice wake-up call. Like, you couldn't tell me before.
But 2 hours is still okay. If he would be like, yeah, we leave in 10, man. So like, oh, super.
The plane leaves in 2 hours.
Oh, yeah, wow. Okay, shit. Okay, that's the one. Yeah, okay. That's happy. But like, speaking about this collaborator, sideman work, like, what are, like, you know, you mentioned also Lee Konitz. What are some like really amazing stuff that you did that you still remember, like that was amazing as a sideman?
I think I love being in the band in the group of Jens Winter, the trumpet player.
Yeah.
It was incredible because he was a hell of a trumpet player, a difficult guy sometimes to be with, difficult guy in few aspects. He was always nice to me, and I could say that much. But Palle Danielson was in that band playing bass, so which was.
But you played in Palle's group then also, right? I read, or no?
Yeah. So we did quite a lot of gigs with Jens's band, and he hired me for his band.
How was that like? I mean, Palle is like, you know, one of the giants.
It was amazing with Joachim Milder from Stockholm, and Rita Marcotuli was playing the piano. I loved her.
Oh, wow. Yeah, she's amazing, yeah.
Whole band, but we were also supposed to record, and then he had a bit of a health problem. This is 2008, maybe, 7 or 8, and then he had something like a stroke, I think. And his wife said, enough.
Yeah.
We really need to. So he had to stop drinking, and he was home for quite a while, and then I don't think he's ever since then
performed, right?
He might have done a record with Marilyn Mazur, I think. Trio with Rita. But the quartet, I don't think that they ever got back together. The next thing I saw him maybe around 2010, where he was playing with Bobo Stenson trio.
Yeah.
And back then he said he hasn't really done anything. He had an agent, an Italian agent. We played a few gigs and also some nice festivals in Italy, but apparently that the work with the agent also didn't work out. And he was trying to get on ECM, to do a record for Manfred.
Oh, wow.
Which there was literally no interest, which I couldn't understand. But that's just the business side.
The business side, yeah, definitely. Yeah, just one last thing, Dan. Like, I saw you played with Bob Berg.
Oh yeah.
With Antonio Farao. You know, I wrote down. I have to ask you this. How was that experience like? Because he was such a great player.
He was also a great person. Man, that humor. God, we had so much fun. There was you know, we had a lot of gigs lined up for the next year. We were also booked for one of those New York clubs. We had a week after the record was supposed to come out, and apparently he died 6 weeks after. And, I only spent 1 week with him. We did a few gigs and did the recording. And super fun, super fun guy, and he always said, "Look, man, Miles was not my favorite gig."
That's a good one. Yeah.
It wasn't my favorite gig. Miles gig.
Amazing.
Amazing player, very supportive, and he had you know, he had iPods back then, and this and listen to that and check out this, and he was playing a lot with Dave Kikoski at that time, and his drummer, he was raving about Gary Novak, who was also in Chick Corea's band. Yeah,
and he played with Alan Holdsworth, I think, some stuff also, like one record.
So he was into that, and living, I think, in Long Island. No, well, outside of New York.
Yeah.
I think he did very well with his career. He was super happy, and he talked a little bit also about his, you know, his drug period in the 80s and the 70s. He doesn't remember. He said there are records out. He doesn't remember doing it.
Oh shit! Oh man, that's heavy. Fuck.
There's one. I think it's a live record with on Red on this Italian label.
Yeah.
And I think the Italian guys are. I think Roberto Gatto is on it, and I think that's the record where Bob once said like, he has no remember. He doesn't remember doing this record.
Shit! Wow, that's heavy. Yeah. This was this generation.
Great experience. I just wish. Well, he passed away 6 weeks later, so
yeah.
Can't really say much about. We spent that 1 week together, and he was a tremendous guy. And he left playing with the trio, and with the trio with Antonio, we had a really great hookup also at those times. And
the Burning Trio,
yeah. We did we were supposed to do another record with Bob.
Yeah.
Didn't work out. So.
Yeah.
Dr. Jazz.